All right, construction champions, it's your host, Ron Nussbaum, and we're here for another amazing episode of Construction Champions Podcast, where we're burning the damn house down twice a week, every Monday and Thursday. You can find myself alongside amazing guests. We know you're here for the guests, so we're just going to skip all the bullshit and just jump right in there and introduce today's guests. Brent, it is great to have you on the show today.
I am almost as excited as you, sir. Thank you so much for having me. I don't want to burn anything down. I know we're going to get some OSHA complaints if we do. So thank you.
Well, sometimes you need some OSHA complaints before you decide that it's time to start to learn more and develop. But the great thing is so me and Brent, we served together in the Marine Corps, what would feel like a lifetime ago. But he's doing amazing things now. I'm excited to have this conversation, but I'll let him tell you about him. How about that?
Well, again, thank you so much. It does feel just like yesterday we were in. I mean, I'm looking at the year. It's 2024. That's crazy. We got out in what, 2011-ish, 10, 11, somewhere in
Yeah.
there. But, since then, we were talking about a little bit before the show. I've been able to really refine what I learned in the Marine Corps, especially around those leadership and communication skills that I know you're very familiar with. And as I was going down that path, I actually had a conversation this year, which is what prompted me to start taking the initiative and be a little bit more proactive and try to share some perspective on leadership and communication of what it is to connect with people, regardless of your industry. And someone told me that leaders lead from behind. And I'm sure I was as thrown off as you are just by looking at me like, what is that? What does that mean? And that led me down this whole road of I've got to do something to get out in front of it and remind people that to lead, you actually have to lead. So that's been my life mission so far. My motto is still, ever since the Marine Corps, is trying to build the foundation for tomorrow's leaders. And now that shocking revelation has really made me more proactive in pursuing that.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know exactly how you would lead from behind.
It threw me off so much. It was one of those, what do I say? Except, can you unpack that a little bit more for me?
Yeah, I would say, ain't that an oxymoron? Like, lead from behind, lead is out in front. I don't know, but let's dive in there. And I'm going to ask you the $1 million question, and that is, what makes a construction champion?
Introducing BuilderComs, your all-in-one construction communication software. Say goodbye to communication mishaps that cause frustration among builders, contractors, and clients. The BuilderComs platform unifies communications, making it easy for you to chat, share updates, and collaborate effectively in one place. Experience the transformation in construction project management with BuilderComs. Visit us at buildercoms.com to learn more and start streamlining your projects today.
I love that question, and I've watched a few of your episodes, and I love hearing how people answer it with different perspective as well. So I really wanted to sit there and think about it for a minute. And to me, a construction champion, it's someone who embodies expertise, leadership, innovation, quality. They're really client-centric. They have a commitment to safety and sustainability. Now, this is going to be someone who's going to excel in communication and collaboration. Right? They really want to prioritize that continuous learning and really adopt some kind of innovative perspective, because I know you and I both know there's so much changing in the construction industry and just across multiple industries that we have to stay on top of. But even in doing that, we have to maintain high standards of craftsmanship while continuing those high standards of safety. And again, that client satisfaction, because those principles are what's going to drive exceptional project outcomes and really just lasting success.
Awesome. I love that. I will say this. So we in the construction industry, guys can be a master of their craft, the master of what they do. But a lot of the problems lie in everything that you addressed after that is not necessarily being a master of that. And that's what can lead us down the road to problems.
And that's a key piece there as well. We get so keyholed in our own specialty, in our own perspective. We forget what it looks like on the other side of the road or the other side of the bridge. we're all working towards that common goal, that common completion date, or that common structure, regardless of the industry that you're in. And we don't do a good job communicating that. Or we think we are, but we're using industry jargon or that trade specific jargon. And we're just not being clear in our expectations or even our intent, which causes miscommunication, project delays. I mean, if you look at it, I forget some of the statistics, but it's something like $31 billion in US annually that's contributed to miscommunication alone.
Yeah, in the construction sector,
Yes.
it comes out to just about $400,000 for your average company. If you have a construction company with less than 100 employees, communication breakdowns is costing you right around $400,000 a year.
That can be debilitating. I think that's huge. That can ruin a business.
Yeah, and I think why we're throwing some statistics out there, since I know a few of these in the communication aspect.
One or two, right?
One of the amazing things is that 30% of construction projects end in a dispute. That's all linked back to communication.
And imagine if we had just taken the time to invest in understanding that perspective, maybe that communication loop, completing it. Did I truly understand what the outcome needed to be? Maybe that follow-up piece. We're all good about talking and viewing or expressing our points. We're not the greatest at getting that follow-up or that feedback to make sure you understood what I was explaining. And it doesn't have to be derogatory. It's just a conversation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you brought up a key point earlier when you said jogging. I'll tell you, one of the things that I had to really invest in cleaning up was the use of jargon, not just from like a personal perspective, but from a division or say like a sales, service, production, a point. Like all these different places had their own different jargon that the customer didn't understand. But what was even worse is no one else in the damn company understood any of it either. Like we all created all this jargon that no one knew except for the person that was speaking it.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and we see it for some of my larger clients. I'm working with a construction company, or not a construction company, a transportation company now, and they have over 150 locations throughout the US. You don't realize how big the US is until you start trying to make some kind of training routine for different people in different regions. I can say something as simple as a reefer trailer on the East Coast, but that means something completely different when you're looking in California or spotting a trailer. Or the same thing in the construction industry. What's the criteria that we're going to be looking at?
Yeah, and it's about centralizing that for your company, or just creating like, this is how we do it. This is what it is. Like when you speak about this specific thing, this is what it means at the company. No matter what branch, no matter what division you're in, like that's just how you have to do it.
Yes, sir.
And then educate your customer on that. Like that's the sales cycle, is their job is to educate the homeowner on everything they're going to hear and everything that's going to happen afterwards.
And that's where that continuous education piece comes in. It kind of frustrates me when I hear companies out there saying it's all about the customer. It really shouldn't be. It has to be about the employee. They're the ones out there on the front line. You treat them right, you educate them, you help develop them to grow. They're your front line. They're the ones that are going to be customer facing. They're the ones delivering the project. And that's what's going to get those long lasting customers and those return customers.
Awesome. So how do we continue to educate our employees here in a ever evolving construction industry that can sometimes not be the most receptive? I mean, on Construction Champions podcast, we call it how I see it. Like that's the bottom line. I've been around the industry long enough to understand this stuff, and I'll call a spade a spade. Like we suck at this stuff.
And I think the key takeaway from that is we all suck at it. It's just we don't realize it. And part of what I do is I use something called a DISC assessment, or their behavioral assessments, right? And it's a 7-minute survey, and it's from the John Maxwell Institute. I use his because, well, he's been around for 40 years. He's written more leadership content, communication content than anyone on the planet, period, ever. So use the guy who's a professional, right? But anyways, we typically start with that 7-minute surveys, and we review them with each client, whether it's a team or an individual. It could be at the executive level. It can be at an entry level position. We even use these for young adults aspiring to be in leadership positions. But we go through and we learn how we communicate, our strengths, our weaknesses, and we teach them how to identify those same characteristics in people they're working with. Once you understand yourself and your own little nuances, it's very easy to pick it up with somebody else. And now you know how to identify those barriers and prevent those miscommunications. But we do it with some humor and we make it fun. We create a social learning environment because it's a social environment out there in the world. You're working with people, you have to build a connection. Connection is what makes effective communication. So that's how we started. At that point, once we process those assessments, it really comes down to what the customer is looking for. And we try to keep things low cost. These are all things we give you that you can take and run with. You know, I want to impact the world. I want to impact tomorrow. I want people to go out there and impact somebody else. That's our whole goal in this. Obviously, it's nice to, get your name out there, but ultimately I want everyone else to drive that mentality so we can truly make a better impact and make a better tomorrow for our kids.
Yeah, I'm a huge component of DIS assessment. I remember the first time I ever did a DIS assessment. I mean, I thought it was going to be an eye-opening moment for everybody else. Like, like here you go. Here's the Bible on Ron Nussbaum. Everybody needs to read this and understand. But it's what you talked about is it's understanding yourself. Because I'm a high D, like 90, I think I got a 96 on the high D, like super high. And I am the abnormality and I am the problem. Like literally my DIS assessment would tell you that. And I have to understand that most people out there in the society don't communicate, don't do anything how I do it, but that's not on them. That's on me. Like once I understood that, it made me such a better leader to be able to just say, this is me. I have to understand how to communicate with everybody else around me. I'm not in the Marine Corps anymore. Like that doesn't work.
Well, and the funny thing is, even applying these tools to the Marine Corps, to any other branch, I mean, the impact would just be huge. It's unimaginable what would actually take place. So it does work in those military mindsets. It does work in that paramilitary environment as well. Another cool thing that we do is a values exercise, and it's one of those things that we usually offer for free. And we ask the question, when was the last time you violated your own values? And when was the last time you overstepped, violated, or just abused the values of your team? So imagine you're out there on a job site and you're pushing your guys too hard constantly. That's going to lead to burnout. Once you understand those values and what drives them, you can have that balance. We adopt a version of the PPC balance, production capability, basically what is produced and our ability to produce. And we show how that's applied using values. So whatever we can do to, again, build those authentic connections, it's going to directly impact your bottom line and the overall quality of work.
And I think values is something that we definitely don't talk about enough, especially personal values, understanding who you are, what you like, what those look like. I know I have my own that align with my business, but I think a lot of people don't even have their own personal values, and that makes that kind of stuff, what you're talking about, really hard.
Well, it's funny, and one day I'll send you a link so you can try it out, but it takes about 15 minutes, right? And we start off with 38 different values. I have them listed on cards. If it's the electronic version, it's just in a Google Sheet. It's pretty simple. But by the time they make it to the end, we've reduced it to a handful of values. And every person who's come out of this says they feel like they've just gone through a therapy session because it's identified their top values. And we've tried to make sure what they're doing aligns with those values. You and I were talking earlier, those Marine Corps times, those were some of the best times in our lives. Maybe not always the most fun, but still some of those best times, or even being out there, working in the heat, in that construction industry, in the transportation industry, wherever we may be. But when you're actually seeing that impact, you feel good. Now, how many times have you seen somebody who's good at what they do, but there's no passion, there's no drive? They're not going to do well. They burn out. That it spreads like a cancer, that negativity. So sometimes we've got to repurpose them, help them figure out what really matters to them.
I like the word repurpose.
Provide new opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's something that I've worked through in the past from a company level and a personal level, is like, you have to find that and you have to give it to people. Like, and not everybody's going to be receptive to it, but that's fine, because you're looking for the right people to be doing what you're doing. And the only way to find them is to have core values, a sense of purpose. What are you doing? Some kind of drive that people can buy into and live.
Oh, yeah. You know, the best manager I ever had fired me. And actually is the reason why I'm in the training industry now. You know, he told me plain and simple, Brent, you're great at teaching people, but you have no passion when it comes to doing it every single day. Because I like change. I like to see things. I like to help develop people. So being a load planner for a transportation company wasn't really my thing. And it made me miserable. So he fired me. I still talk to him today. He's great.
Well, no, that makes sense, because we all have the stuff that we just don't have no desire for. Like, I'm not a huge salesperson. Like, that's just not I've checked the sales bucket because I had to. But like, I didn't have any passion to do that. It didn't fire me up.
You know, I think some people, they hear this, if you're not good at something, keep practicing, you're going to get good at it. And that's true to an extent. You know, I forget which book it's in, but it's from John Maxwell. He talks about focus on what you're good at and become better at it, basically. If you're not good at sales, well, don't do it. You're not good at it. Focus on what you're good at. Now, you should still understand it, but focus on your strengths.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and I think that's where people get hung up, is that they just feel like they need to understand, do everything. I believe I just have to have an understanding so I can ask intuitive and smart questions about stuff. Like,
Correct. You want to be well-rounded. You don't want to be out of your element by any means. But
like I did my own
find somebody who is.
I did my own social media for like 6 months, and I kept having people tell me, like, why are you doing this? And I said, because I have to have an understanding of it. Like, I don't want to do this, but I can't just immediately hire somebody and then, like, I can't set any expectations or any guidelines if I don't understand it. And
Correct.
like, that's where, like, you just have to have an understanding and then move on. Like, that's it. And go do what you're great at.
And be open to that dialogue. Understand that sometimes these interactions, these conversations could lead to a conflict, but those conflicts aren't necessarily bad, because it's like a discovery session. You're going to learn your strengths and your weaknesses, and you're actually articulating those things so you can grow and move beyond it. But we keep getting hung up on, it might hurt their feelings, or it might make them feel a little alienated. Sometimes you need that hard conversation. That's where that development piece comes in. Change is difficult. Growth is difficult. If you're always comfortable, you're probably not growing. I mean, think about your first podcast. Was that easy?
No, not at all. This is something that a couple years ago, and I've touched on it on here. Like, this was way out of my wheelhouse. Like, doing podcasts, doing all of this stuff. No, Ron Nussbaum was not interested. Let's put it that way. But Ron Nussbaum became interested, and I tend to have a knack for it. That's what everybody at least tells me. And I believe we're doing a great thing for the construction industry here.
That's fantastic. No, I like I said, I was excited when you gave the opportunity to me to be on your show. You know, you do have a nice following. You are making changes in the construction industry. And, you know, I saw it and I wanted to be part of that with you. That's fantastic.
Absolutely. And all that came from was just being uncomfortable and deciding to be uncomfortable and just doing it so many times that now it's not uncomfortable. And it's like, what's the next thing that is uncomfortable? Just keep pushing the envelope. So that's what we have to do. That's what anybody that's in any kind of leadership role, or even if you're not and you want to be in a leadership role and you're like, how do I become a leader, or how do I go to the next level? Well, you have to get uncomfortable, because that's where that next level lives.
That reminds me of a saying in the Warrior Ethos, if you remember from your Marine Corps days, was on the Commandant's reading list. I know you read it. It's okay. I know you did. But in one of the chapters, The Joys of Misery, he talks about, and this is for any of your Marine Corps listeners out there to really represent them, but Marines pride themselves in their ability to endure hardship. And, when you're getting out of those combat arms services, remember, that's what you have a knack for. You're able to endure those hardships. You're able to endure the growth. And anything that you do in that process of growing and developing, it's not going to be nearly as hard as what you did yesterday. So
100%, man. I love it. I love it. You're doing great things. You're out there helping people grow, set them up for success. Like I said, I believe in the DISC assessment 100%. For all the construction champions listening, if they wanted to connect with you, follow you, learn more about what you're doing, where's the best places for them to do that?
Well, we have our website out there. It's simpleskilldevelopment.com. You can contact us through there. I've also shared our email address with you, which if you're able to tag that at the end, that'd be fantastic, and a phone number. Email is obviously the best because there's a paper trail and we can always follow up. Plus, for any of your listeners, if they want to try any of our DISC assessments, I've created a coupon code form. If they just type in champion, it's not case sensitive, so just champion, then they'll get a discount on any of the services. Plus, if you email me directly through that training consultant at skilldevelopment.com and you say you heard us on your podcast here, we'll try to help them out whenever we're developing those communication programs for them or leadership programs.
Awesome, man. I love it. And thank you for taking the time to be on the show today.
Hey, thank you so much for being here, sir. And Semper Fi.
Semper Fi, man. Semper Fi. All right, construction champions, another fantastic episode where we talked about getting uncomfortable a little bit there. So you guys are probably very comfortable. Probably not. Like, let's see here. It might be a Monday morning, and if it is let me look. It's a Thursday morning. Closing the week out, you're probably a little uncomfortable. Don't know exactly what's happening with a couple different things, I'm sure. But here's one thing: is what Brent brought up with the DISC assessments. If you haven't personally taken a DISC assessment yourself and understand yourself, that's wrong. Like I said, it's one of the greatest things I ever did. To understand yourself. Like, my goal is to always be the best Ron Nussbaum I can be. Well, if I don't understand how Ron Nussbaum just naturally operates, how I'm naturally wired, I can't be that. And we go through, like, until I took my DISC assessment, it probably took me 6 months after I took my DISC assessment to actually understand that I was the problem, because I was convinced everybody else is a problem. And there's a lot of guys out there listening right now that think everybody else is the problem. And I'm going to tell you, no, you're the problem. Take a DISC assessment and understand why you are the problem. And then you have a clear understanding. And then when you're having these conversations and you're communicating with customers, employees, spouse, I think every married person should have a DISC assessment for both of you. Like that, it would fix so many problems. But understand yourself, how you communicate, how you react in environments, into different situations. It's so powerful. So I mean, take that opportunity. Go get a DISC assessment done. Like, I don't know what everybody's waiting for, but if you have it, go get one done. Make sure you check out all of our fantastic sponsors. And until next time, be the champion you were meant to be.
Introducing BuilderComms, your comprehensive construction communication software. Simplify project management with unified communications, real-time picture and document sharing, and instant project notifications. Keep everyone in the loop and ensure client satisfaction. Experience the transformation in construction project management with BuilderComms. Start streamlining your projects and keeping clients ecstatic today. Say goodbye to misunderstandings and endless email digging. Say hello to more winning time. Choose BuilderComms, your gateway to construction project success.